is Mystery Meat's Fine Dining podcast, helping foodies discover new restaurants and new friends. Here's your host, the founder of Mystery Meat, Seth Ressler.
Hello and welcome to Mystery Meat's Fine Dining podcast. I'm your host. My name is Seth Ressler. This is the podcast for foodies who love travel and travelers who love food. And today we're going to talk to Chef Bob Hurley of Hurley's up in Napa Valley. Wine country. Very excited about that. Before we get to him, let me tell you what Mystery Meat is all about. Mystery Meat is a social dining group. It's a bunch of foodies who get together to try a restaurant. The catch is they don't find out where they're going until 24 hours in advance. So we're about to do our second Mystery Meat dinner in San Francisco. We're doing one in Boston. And if you want it to come to your city, all you got to do is head over to our website, mysterymeat.org. And click the big orange button and sign up to get an invitation. When we see a bunch of people in your city who all want to have a Mystery Meat dinner, we'll put it together. It's that easy. All right, let's talk to Chef Bob Hurley from Napa Valley. He's the owner of Hurley's. We're going to talk to him about the Flavor Napa Valley Festival that's coming up, and we're also going to play Out of the Frying Pan. Chef Hurley, thank you so much for joining us.
That sounds great. Where do I sign up for this Mystery Meat thing?
All you got to do is go to the website, mysterymeat.org, and we'd love to do one in Napa Valley. How great would that be?
What a concept.
I hear you've got some good restaurants there.
Yeah, a couple.
So you are actually the first chef we've had on the podcast, and I'm so excited about that. Let's talk a little bit about you and your history and how you became a chef. You're a California native.
Born in San Francisco, very working class. My father was a fireman and grew up through the whole Catholic school kind of thing, and very middle class and very, very happy childhood. Not much of it really involved with professional cooking, although both my father as a fireman and my mother were both very good cooks. So we ate very fresh food. I graduated and found myself working as a teamster, making good money, but, it was kind of a nowhere job for me. I wanted something with a little more stimulation, so I left that job. Leaving this job, I just needed some adventure, so I wanted to travel, bought a van and traveled around the United States in just me in the van and a little Coleman cook stove, and I lived out of the van, worked as I went along to get enough money for another tank of gas and a little bit more food. And I was out for about 6 months and really saw the United States. It was a great experience.
Wow.
And one of the things I did to earn money was I'd stop and work in hotels, in the kitchens, and work as a dishwasher.
Right.
And that showed me what professional kitchen was. And I thought, wow, if I go to school for 6 months and learn how to cook, I can be a cook, I can make more money, and I could be guaranteed meals. So when I got back, I enrolled in a junior college in a cooking school, thinking I'd shortcut this whole thing and be a chef in 6 months or whatever, and discovered that I did enjoy cooking. And so I took off. I just loved cooking and really got into it. And when I graduated, I stayed true to what my dreams were, and I went to Europe. And I traveled around in Europe and worked there. Switzerland, I worked there. I worked in the south of France and traveled all over the place.
I mean, you love cooking, but you also love travel. I mean, it's very much the combination of the two.
Absolutely. Travel was definitely my first love, and cooking came secondly. But then I realized and found through my travels how intertwined they are. And if you really understand, the cultures where you go, understand the people, then you really have a great understanding of the food. I can look in a cookbook here, and let's say the stuff's from India or even from the south of France, and I understand where they're going at with the recipes or with what they're talking about because I've been there and I felt it. I felt the hot sun on a day on the beach, in Nice. It's hard to articulate, but knowing that, it's a lot easier to put things together and you don't have to go buy a recipe. You just get a general idea and you cook it.
So the food reflects the geography and the culture and...
Yeah, what dictates what you eat. Why is there no fine wine coming out of Thailand? You get some pretty good beers coming out of there, but wine, it just doesn't mix with the climate. It doesn't mix with the food. Whereas in France or Italy, it just fits hand in glove. Wine is a natural there with the food.
Right.
All that real rustic, homey stuff that comes out of northern Germany is because of the cold. It's cold up there, so they eat braised cabbage and sauerbraten, the braised heavy meats with a heavy sauce.
Right, stuff that's a little more hearty.
Yeah, it all makes a lot of sense, and that's what the traveling did for me.
So where did you go when you went on this overseas trip?
Well, the first place I went, of course, was Europe, and I wanted to work in France. I had a copy of Waverly Route with me, The Foods of France. It's a rather old book, but it's a travel log that heavily involved food.
Right.
armed with that, I went to all the different parts of France and experienced regional food. And regional food, to me, so important in what I do. And the wording has changed a lot. It's no longer regional cuisine, but it's sustainable cuisine now, which is the same thing. You're getting it from next door, which is part of what we celebrate here in Napa Valley is, the further you go, the less authentic it is as far as your regional cuisine goes. So I can get my seafood right here off the Pacific Coast, which is what I use mostly.
Right.
I can get produce from up valley. There's several fig trees that grow right here in Yountville. If you get it close by, it just seems more real to me. And it's more sustainable, of course, and it's fresher and it's tastier, and that's where all this is going, and it's been going this way a long time.
And you're seeing more of that now, I feel.
Yep, and it's becoming much more important, I think, for people too, because I think people are paying attention now to what they're eating, because so much of this can be processed and you just have no idea what's going on. Thusly, all the recent laws with genetic labeling and that kind of thing, it's all coming together.
I wanted to ask you about this. We're obviously all in the process of voting, and there is a proposition on the California ballot about labeling genetically modified food. And I was wondering if, as a chef, you had an opinion on that.
Yes, absolutely. I like to see what I'm eating. This whole genetic thing, I think the jury is still out. I'm not one to rush to a decision. I really believe in feeding the world any way you can. However, I think we have to approach it with a lot of caution, because we've been sold a bill of goods before that was not correct. I just think it requires caution.
All right. So let's get back. How do we get you from Europe back to Napa Valley?
Well, anyway, after Europe, I came back to the country to work, and actually my first job back was in Napa Valley, the place called Auberge du Soleil, and I worked there, and then I came back to San Francisco and worked back in San Francisco, and then I left again. And this time I traveled throughout Asia and Southeast Asia and India. I got a little bit more exotic. Pretty adventurous. It was a lot of fun. But I came back from that and then entered Napa Valley via Domaine Chandon, where I was the nighttime chef de cuisine. And I was there for about 3 years. And from there I went to Napa Valley Grill here in Yountville. I spent 9 years there. And then opening my own place was just calling. And that was it. The property I'm at right now went into bankruptcy, and I scooped it up, and I've been here 10 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, this month.
Wow. Happy anniversary. And I know you like to focus on local, seasonal, sustainable. Talk to me about the concept behind Hurley's.
It is regional. We talked about regional cooking before, and I fiercely wanted Hurley's to reflect the region, the town, first of all. I consider Yountville the epicenter of my existence. I'll source anything I can from Yountville first. There's a lot of reasons for that, marketing not being one of the least. I've always wanted to be the local spot, where the locals go kind of thing, and that helps. Now, after Yountville, the circle then grows to Napa Valley.
Right.
After Napa Valley, the circle grows to just general California wine country, and then on and on and on. And I won't say that I don't get things from Mexico in the dead of winter when I can't get them here.
Right.
I'm also a business person, and I realize there are some restrictions that I have to go there. But given the preference, most things I get, particularly during the summertime, which is absolutely my favorite time, most things are sourced locally.
So explain the geography a little bit. I mean, there's Napa Valley, which is not huge in and of itself, but within Napa Valley, there's a number of towns. There's, as you work your way north, I guess there's Napa, Yountville, Oakville, Rutherford, St. Helena.
And all have different microclimates. Things grow differently in each area. Thusly, the varietals of grapes, you'll find a lot of Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays, stuff in the southern end of the valley near the bay that get the cool night air and that kind of stuff. And north in the valley, you'll find more of the Cabernets, the Zins, and that kind of stuff. There are quite a few microclimates here.
And you're in Yountville. What is that known for?
Well, Yountville is a small town, and we have a big veterans home and hospital here. There are a lot of migrant workers here, too. My mother grew up near here, and she would never tell people where she was because Yountville was kind of not a great place.
Right.
And suddenly, the wine thing took off, and Napa Valley was getting very famous for its wine. And then a few restaurateurs came in, and food entered the scene, and the vintners, I think, discovered not only that, food is so much like wine and it's such a great marriage, but also it's a good way to sell wine.
Right.
Is to have good food, right? And good restaurants popped up like Domaine Chandon here in Yountville, and Mustards came in with Cindy Paulson, was a great pioneer of food in this valley. And then the big slam that we got, of course, was when Thomas Keller decided to locate here and opened up the French Laundry. And from there, it really took off. And right now, Yountville is just, there's hardly a bad restaurant here.
So it's changed a lot in the time that you've been there.
Oh, yeah, immensely it changed. If you had been here 30 years ago and then you come in here now, you wouldn't recognize it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great place.
So talk to me a little bit about, what people can see on the menu at Hurley's. And in particular, talk to me about the Wild Game Week that you do.
Oh, yeah, we have a Wild Game Week, which is something I've been doing for about 18 years. And this year it's November 12th to 17th. And this is where I glean on experiences I had while traveling. There was one spot when I was traveling, and I stopped and got involved in a vendage, a grape harvest, and I was picking grapes and carrying grapes and crushing the grapes. And at the end of it all, the proprietor went up into the hills and shot a wild goat and had a big feast for all the workers, and then let us, then dismissed us and said, okay, thanks a lot, maybe see you next year, whatever. But going into the town, stuff in the villages, as I was traveling around the area, there was wild game everywhere and wild mushrooms, and it's just that, it's so traditional there. And when I came back, I saw a need or an opportunity, and I got together with another chef who was familiar with wild game, and we cooked a wild game dinner. It was a success, and so then every year after that, I've had an entire week of wild game, and we've become actually pretty famous for it.
What week of the year is that?
It's the second week in November.
Okay.
What I do is I just get a bunch of stuff and I rotate it so that there are different things on the menu each day, although some repeat themselves. So I have things like pheasant and venison, elk, I have antelope, I have wild boar.
That's great.
And then I have some of the tamer stuff like duck and quail. And I do wild stuff out of the sea as well, like octopus and shark. And we do things like roasted leg of antelope or osso buco of elk.
Wow.
It's a good time.
All right.
The cooks are all real psyched because they're doing different things. And people are psyched because it's something they just don't ordinarily get.
So that's definitely the time to come check out Hurley's then, Wild Game Week in November.
Yeah, that is.
All right.
Napa Valley is great for the food and wine, but it can become fairly one-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things you can't do with wine if you're cooking to it. All the chefs in Napa Valley know that that's what they're doing. They're cooking to the wine, so the wine kind of dictates what you can and can't do. So you can't have, real radical flavors. You can do that, but in general, something that's very, very spicy or very salty or very acidic is not going to sit well with most wine.
Right.
That's something you want a nice cold beer with.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
Right. No, not at all. Well, so we should talk about wine if we're talking about Napa Valley. There's over 400 tasting rooms there in the valley. When you have guests come in, where do you tell them to go? Because you can't do all 400.
You're absolutely right. And it's difficult to find a bad wine in Napa Valley. They come and they go.
Right.
So normally when I recommend things, the first thing I'll do is, again, I'll go local. We have an incredible appellation here in Yountville that has some world-class wine that we do, and we have also 8 to 10 tasting rooms. So you can come into Yountville, check into a hotel, and never leave.
Right. Right.
You got all the restaurants, you have all the tasting rooms. I mean, you're in heaven. You got spas, balloon rides, whatever you want to do. It's self-sustained here.
So you can actually do just that little section of the valley on one trip and spend your entire trip just there.
Oh, yeah, and experience everything you might want to experience coming to the wine country. You can do it right here in Yountville. However, this is not all just about Yountville. This is the whole Napa Valley.
Sure. The
experiences are different wherever you go. And I think, we have an event coming up called Flavor Napa Valley, and that reflects exactly what we're talking about here.
So let's talk about Flavor Napa Valley, because this is, in fact, a great way to get a taste of the entire valley, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And this is happening November 14th to the 18th, so it's coming up.
That's right.
And it's in its second year. Tell me a little bit about this celebration.
What we're doing is we're celebrating that whole concept, Seth, that we were talking about. And they're calling it now farm to table, which we called sustainable or which we called regional cuisine, whatever.
Yep.
This is literally farm to table that we're celebrating with all the world-class wine that we have here in the premier wine-growing region of the country, which is Napa. And we've got over 50 chefs and 125 wineries that are participating in this thing.
Wow. Including
many of the famous local chefs, and then chefs that are coming in. There are graduates from CIA, which is the sponsor and the benefactor of this whole thing. The monies that are raised are going for scholarships
Yeah, right. So all the proceeds benefit the Culinary Institute of America, which has a Greystone campus right there in Napa Valley, right, in St. Helena?
Right. And specifically the scholarships as opposed to just going to the school.
Gotcha.
There's a big difference, especially for me. That's a huge difference.
This is helping students who want to go into the culinary industry.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got some great chefs that are graduates and great chefs that aren't graduates that we're all thrown down here and coming up with stuff. The whole thing goes for 4 days.
And it's tastings and it's chef demonstrations and it's all kinds of
seminars, workshops, demonstrations. Like you said, you've got Thomas Keller, Ken Frank, and Larry Forgione, and Michael Chiarello, and a lot of these great names of people you get to just mingle with and rub elbows with, hear them speak, watch them cook with them, along with the famous winemakers. It's priceless.
And you're involved with something on the 16th, which is called the Appalachian Trail Tasting Napa Valley. Tell me what's happening there.
This may be the best night out of the whole bunch for me. The Appalachian Trail on Friday involves about 35 chefs, pretty much all local, and they're each coming up with a different dish to taste, along with the wineries. They're being paired with different wines and different wineries so that you're going to see what real food and wine pairing is all about. And it just goes on all night. It's last year was the first year, and I was so impressed. I'm pretty jaded. I've been here a long time, and I was amazed at all this food. It was just overload. It was just so much food, and it was all done very well. The chefs are out to not only put up their best stuff, to show what they can do here, but they're also trying to impress each other. Let's be honest about it. You have all these great chefs that get together. They don't want to be putting something up that they're not 100% proud of.
Right.
So they're all putting up their best stuff with some just great wine next to it. It's fun, and it's quite an experience. Everybody's happy. Everybody's having a good time.
So have you decided what you're going to be showcasing there, or is it a secret?
I'm doing wild king salmon. I'm crusting it in shallot and pancetta and serving it in a butter leaf lettuce cup with a very classic San Francisco dressing called Green Goddess dressing. It's a sauce or a dressing that was created at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco, turn of the century.
Oh, wow. Some history in it.
History, my hometown stuff, and it's a great marriage, and I'll be paired with a Chardonnay.
Nice. Other
things going on. You're going to get some terrine. You're going to get some salads made with good grains like farro and that kind of thing. People are doing lamb sausage, rabbit. Morimoto's doing a lobster wonton.
Oh, wow.
It's from the very finesse to the stuff that's more rustic and more homey. We've got, people doing sliders.
Yep.
Soups, steak tartares.
So a wide variety there.
A huge variety, yeah, and all matched with the wine.
And you said this festival is very much about sustainability and the farm-to-table movement. Tell me a little bit about how you find farms and decide where you're going to source your ingredients from.
I've been in the Valley now over 25 years, so I've had a chance and the opportunity to be able to source these things as they come to my doors. Funny enough, a lot of the growers that grow grapes, I think they get a little frustrated just growing grapes. They like to grow other things. So a lot of them have little side plots where they just grow things just to grow them because they enjoy that. And some of the restaurants will benefit by that. They'll just come and they'll say, hey, I just picked lemons off my Meyer lemon tree. You want a couple cases? Or, I've got fig trees in there. The figs are popping. Do you want some? Or I have somebody who's a vintner who I buy beans, tomatoes, fava beans. Fava beans is a cover crop for grapes.
Uh-huh.
A cover crop meaning that they come up in the spring and then they plow them back into the soil to set nitrogen and set various minerals and stuff that the grapes do well with. So fava beans are a cover crop. They pick the fava beans. I get these beautiful fava beans that were just picked that morning. Nothing like it. I've never experienced anything like that before I came here.
But it's not the kind of thing the general public would be able to get.
No, unless they go to the farmers markets kind of thing, and they'll get it there. Yeah. But I also have these guys that'll grow things for me. I'll say, what about next year? What if you grow some of this or grow some of that? And they'll try it just for fun. Like I said, they're just, farmers are a funny breed in that they're not in it totally for the money. It's for the love. So they love to grow things and see how they come up. And it's as much of an adventure for them to grow it as it is for us to cook it.
Now, do you still travel a lot?
Not as much as I'd like to. I'm really tied down by the restaurant, but I'm starting to explore South America a little bit. I missed South America, so I went to Argentina a little while ago and explored some of the wine areas there and some of the lakes and the regions there, and that was a lot of fun. Costa Rica, I took my family to Costa Rica, and Brazil. I went with my wife to Brazil a little bit.
What advice would you give to culinary travelers? I mean, is there, one tip that you sort of learned along the way that you would pass on?
Yeah, you can do it. It's out there. I've told my stories and people envy me and admire what I did as if it took a lot. All it takes is just get out there and do it. I've stayed in some real hovels in the spirit of getting somewhere. It's a bug that you catch, and it's so rewarding.
Great advice. Are you ready to play a little game?
Sure.
All right, this game is called Out of the Frying Pan. I am going to ask you for some off-the-top recommendations. Just tell me the first thing that pops into your head. You ready?
Yeah.
A lot of people like to pair wine with cheese. Do you have a favorite place to buy cheeses?
Yeah, I do. There's a place in Napa, the Oxbow Market, and it's a cheese shop there. Not only do they have the cheese, they have the knowledge. This is like what I would expect if I went into a cheese place in Italy or France, where there are just cheeses from everywhere. And they do push the local stuff, though. There's a lot of good Northern California cheese manufacturers, and give you the tour. They'll give you a little taste. Forgive me, I don't know the name of the cheese place, but it's the only one there in Oxbow Market.
All right. What about meats? Do you have like a butcher shop or a place that you would tell people to go to?
Yeah, you have to also go to Oxbow Market for that. And there's a purveyor there that has some wonderful meat, and it runs the whole gamut from grass-fed beef to regular Midwestern corn-fed. It depends what your preference is. A lot of preferences. Argentina, for instance, has great beef, but it's all grass-fed beef, and that's what they like. Up here, if you come from the Midwest, it's got to be corn-fed.
Right. Right.
It's all at Oxbow Market. It's a great market in the city of Napa.
Now, obviously, wine is the big attraction in Napa. Is there anybody doing anything interesting with beer or cocktails there?
Yes. Napa Smith Brewery in Napa is one of the hottest new breweries here. They do some excellent beers. I have done beer dinners with them that have been some of my more successful dinners. Wine tasting dinners here are good, but it's kind of like there's a certain point where it's like bringing sand to the beach.
Right.
When after a while, unless you really get something very, very special and really promote it, it's old hat. But when we start doing different things, that's what one thing at Hurley's that we do a lot of are different things. That's why I remain to be the local go-to place, because we'll do a celebration of Robert Burns, which has nothing to do with wine. The Scottish poet on his birthday.
Oh wow!
And we do an Irish for St. Patrick's Day. I do a huge Irish thing. Change the menu totally to be a Gaelic menu.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so swimming against the stream here and being different is a positive thing, because we all get used to the same thing over and over and over again. So for something to come something different, everybody kind of goes, whoa, when we check that out. It's not like being in the city.
Right.
Because we know our draw is the wine. We know people are coming here for the wine and the food, so that's what we gear our business toward.
Right.
So when something comes up like a beer thing, people go for it. And quite successfully, we have a place called Silverado Brewing Company up in the north of St. Helena.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole liquor licensing laws have changed a little bit. So if you have a brewer's license, it's a lot cheaper than to get a license to carry alcohol. So a lot of restaurants are doing their own brews in-house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's beginning to be a big thing here. But you can find some good stuff. The beer, especially Napa Smith, is the one you want to pay attention to.
All right, last question. If this is my first time in Hurley's, what should I order?
Oh, geez, braised wild boar. Braised wild. It's one of those things I get tired of talking about because it's become a signature dish, and if I ever took it off the menu, they'd run me out of town. It's just, it's one thing you cook over and over and over and over again, and as far as my creativity goes, I've done this 1,000 times, so it's not as exciting doing it, but people love it. It's very rustic. It's called cincale. In Italy, they call it cincale, and it's just wild boar, and we braise it very, very slowly in red wine and veal stock. And after it becomes fork tender, we take it out and we reduce all the cooking juice into a nice, rich sauce. And we serve that on top of polenta that has been infused with truffle.
Oh.
And surround it with roasted vegetables, roasted root vegetables, carrots, turnips, that kind of thing.
Oh.
Put a few little crispy onion rings on top, just the ones that are dusted in flour, not the heavy breaded ones.
Right, right. Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and it goes great with wine.
Yeah, what do you pair that with?
My first go-to is a varietal called Charbonneau, which not many people know of. You don't find it very much, but I have like 6 on my wine list because I love it, and it's one of my missions to educate people on Charbonneau.
Oh, wow. All right. Thank you so much for playing. Chef Bob Hurley of Hurley's in Napa Valley. He's also going to be at the Flavor Napa Valley celebration that's happening November 14th through the 18th. You're going to be there the 16th. People can find Hurley's at 6518 Washington Street in Yountville. They can go online, hurleysrestaurant.com. If you want to know more about Flavor Napa Valley, you can go to flavornapavalley.com. Chef Hurley, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Seth. My pleasure. Anytime.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. This has been Mystery Meat's Fine Dining Podcast. Again, if you want a Mystery Meat dinner in your town, go to mysterymeat.org, click the big orange button, and sign up for an invitation. You can find links to a lot of the things that we've been talking about in this podcast on the Mystery Meat website. Go to iTunes if you like this podcast, and subscribe and give us a nice review. And if you're a food blogger or somebody else who organizes a food event, we'd love to talk to you. Go to the Mystery Meat website and just click the Contact Us link and send us an email, and we'll have you on. Thank you so much for listening.
This has been Mystery Meat's Fine Dining Podcast. You can find links to the websites mentioned in this episode at mysterymeat.org/podcast. Thank you for listening.